Okay, so we all know that people have different personalities. You've probably noticed it yourself, taken an MBTI test, an Enneagram test, and then felt that sweet rush of validation. Like, yes, I'm a quirky, intelligent, but very lazy INTP. Round of applause. You nailed it. Pat yourself in the back. Congratulations. But then reality hits. Suddenly everyone's calling it pseudoscience. It's just astrology for nerds. Or you fall into the trap of endless stereotypes, mistyping, and boxing people into rigid labels forever, and it gets kind of depressing. But don't worry, because there is a better way. Let me introduce you to the Big Five personality traits, also known as the 5-factor model, or Ocean, or whatever the hell you want to call it. This one is actually backed up by real science, decades of research across cultures, thousands of studies, and consensus from psychologists worldwide, and they have proper data, not just vibes. But if you decided to open up the internet and search the Big Five personality traits, you'll end up realizing that it's super academic and it's also very dry. Most people only hear about it if they're psychology students or deep into Jordan Peterson's rabbit hole. So in this video, I'm going to break it down as simply as possible to make sure that you have access to this knowledge, enjoy it, and maybe even try to use it to improve your life. I don't know, do whatever you want to do with it. So the Big Five describes personality using 5 core traits, each on a spectrum from low to high. Now, it's not just a black and white thing because you can actually be at a range between the middle parts. So for example, right, if I want to lift up weights so that I can gain muscles, the opposite of that would be me lying on my bed, not doing anything for the whole day. Now, of course, it isn't true all the time. I can lie on my bed, but then on the weekends, I can just lift up weights so that I can gain some muscles. So without further ado, let's move on with the first one, which is openness. So openness is about how much you crave new experiences. So someone who has high openness is more likely to be creative, curious, and also imaginative. So it can mean like you love art, you like ideas, you like adventure, you like to try weird foods, I guess, or dive deep into philosophy at 2 a.m. It's basically the whole package of opening up to new experiences. If you have low openness, however, you are more likely to be much more practical, straightforward, routine loving. You prefer what works, what's familiar, and you don't need constant novelty. So pause the video real quick and then tell me where do you land on openness. Maybe track it down so that you can find out what's your personality trait from the Big Five. So the next one is conscientiousness. It's a fancy word, but it basically just means how disciplined and organized you are. Someone who has high conscientiousness is more likely to be reliable, goal-oriented, hardworking, and can also be the type to get things done in a very pragmatic way. You make plans, you actually follow through it, and you also keep your room tidy and have a to-do list every time you want to do something for the day. Of course, these are stereotypes, but that can be true for you. If you have low conscientiousness, however, you are more likely to be spontaneous, flexible, and be with the flow. You're much more creative in the moment, but sometimes you can procrastinate as if it's like your spirit animal. Now, I don't know about you, but me personally, my conscientiousness is so low that it's basically exploring the Mariana Trench right now. Anyways, let's move on with extroversion. Now, this one is much more familiar. People know what extroversion is. Now, if you are high in extroversion, it just means that you're energetic, you're much more talkative, you're much more social, you thrive in crowds, and you love meeting new people, and probably get bored alone. If you are low on extroversion, or in other words, you call yourself an introvert, then you're much more reserved, thoughtful, prefers smaller groups or smaller circles, or you just like to prefer to focus on yourself most of the time. So basically, extroversion is as simple as that. Agreeableness, however, is basically the measure of how much you prioritize harmony and kindness. So high agreeableness means that you are more likely to be compassionate, trusting, and also empathetic. You're basically the person who tries to help a stranger, for example. You see the best in everyone. Or it can also make you somewhat delusional because you trust people too much or you try to people please. Now, if you have low agreeableness or what people like to call disagreeable, you are more likely to be skeptical, blunt, competitive, and you can also be somewhat realistic. You can call out nonsense, you don't sugarcoat, but sometimes I see that people have very low agreeableness to the point that they become like total assholes sometimes. Finally, we move on to neuroticism. So this one is basically about emotional sensitivity. how strongly you feel negative emotions. If you have high neuroticism, it means that you are more likely to experience anxiety, sadness, or stress much more intensely than others. You're probably also very self aware and you feel things fully. And I do hear that a lot of people they treat neuroticism as like it's a bad thing. Oh, you cannot have too much of a high neuroticism, which in my opinion I kind of disagree because I feel like having high neuroticism just means that you are much more sensitive to your own feelings and your own emotions. If you choose to keep making the right choices or trying to become better despite your sensitivity, me personally, I feel like that's much more cooler than if you were to be like emotionally dead, for example. Now, if you have low neuroticism, it means that you are more likely to be calm, emotionally stable, and basically just chill under pressure. You can get rage baited all day and just, not care at all. Okay, so basically, neuroticism can somewhat be misunderstood because, we don't want negative emotions. But I feel like if you're able to leverage it properly, if you know that you're much more sensitive, why not try something that is much more, you know, personal, something that's much more humanistic? Say, for example, you want to do counseling, therapy, or perhaps you want to do teaching. I feel like having high neuroticism can have its advantages there. Well, again, of course, if you have low neuroticism, then you have much more of an advantage in very high pressure situations. So when you start to like actually indulge in learning about the big five and understanding it, you will start to realize that there's actually a lot of benefits you can get from this. Say for example, oh, you're in a workplace or you're with your friends, and then you started to see like this very annoying trait that they have, and you just cannot understand why they are that way. Well, by understanding this big five personality traits, you can like identify, oh, this person is just too much high on the conscientiousness side, or that this person is like too low on the agreeableness side, which makes them kind of imbalanced in that personal traits. So I feel like being able to understand this out of people can be very helpful if you're trying to like, survive with those kinds of people, or maybe you're just trying to understand them. But me personally, I would like to use it for myself. Like say for example, I want to like grow myself. I see that there are areas where I'm not good at, well I can just like try and become better at those things. Now I know some people they don't actually want to actually improve. They feel like, oh, this is just my orientations. And that's fair. I feel like you can definitely just stay with your orientations and just do whatever the hell you want to do. But I feel like, you can leverage your way by understanding that, oh, I have high openness. So it means that I'm much more creative. Oh, I have low conscientiousness. It means that I'm much more spontaneous. These kind of things can be helpful into giving you like assurances, or it can give you like, validations into thinking that, hey, maybe I'm not just like this like stupid person who doesn't know how to do anything. Perhaps I have the capability to actually be better for myself and just play with my strengths instead of trying to follow a certain structure or rule that is against my orientations. And if you're much more on the lower openness side or you're higher on the conscientiousness side, it can just mean that you're much more suited to very detailed or disciplined uh, jobs. And that can be the same for anyone else who feels like, oh, I have low openness, oh, I have too much of a high conscientiousness. It can mean two things. You can either like try to like, balance it out, maybe relax a bit more, do some hobbies, learn new things, enjoy life more, indulge in failure. Or you can just like double down on it and say, you know what? I feel like I have the capability to like conquer the world and become a CEO. Then go for it. I feel like that's good for you. Essentially, I want people to like use Big Five not as like a way to box you in, because it's much more flexible than you think. You can actually change your personality trait with effort, of course. But at the same time, you can also choose to not change it. You can just double down on the things that you're actually good at. So it just depends on you how you want to use it. Treat it as more of a tool instead of like a religion, for example. Like science is supposed to be reference, not something that you hold on to as if your life depends on it. Unless if you're like talking about bridges, which requires physics, I guess. Anyways, congratulations. You have understood what the big five personality traits are. So you just leveled up your understanding of yourself. Now, if you have like problems trying to like type yourself, you feel like, oh, I feel like I'm sort of right here, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm exactly this? Well, it's very common because, or most often than not, you cannot type yourself because you're going to like delulu yourself. You're going to like glaze yourself to hell. So in that case, I feel like it's much more better to have like a second opinion, or perhaps like a close friend, a close family member that can like tell you, oh, no, you're not like that. I see you more of like this. I see your orientations more towards this thing. And sometimes we don't want to like accept that because we feel like, oh no, this is not what I am. I don't want to like be this kind of way. I don't want to be cringe. Of course, I'm like a very open person. But most often than not, what we produce or what we show to the world is often what our orientations are, which is why second opinions are very helpful. Another way to do it is you just search up online the big five personality trait test. That can also work. But me personally, I feel like it suffers the same problems as self typing because you're going to glaze yourself. Or you can actually just, dive deeper into the personality traits because there's like six deeper facets for every personality traits. And I feel like if you completely understand what each facets mean, then you can identify exactly what you're trying to search for. But of course, we can like talk about that in another video if you want. Anyways, thanks for watching. Drop your 5 big scores and comments if you're brave enough. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye bye.